Good evening, Clarence Tong here. Thank you for joining us for the February live stream program. And I hope you're surviving the 2021 blizzard. And also, happy Black History Month. This is our first gathering since President Biden and Vice President Harris have taken office, and two new Democratic senators from Georgia, Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, were sworn in to the Senate, allowing for Democratic control. I hope you're sleeping a little better at night, but we still need your help. We have an incredible amount of work to do so we can get our country back on track and build back better. As I noted last month, the 2021 election year will be very busy with consequential local and state elections. We have a bit more clarity now regarding the Democratic primaries, which are expected on June 8th. But of course, things could still change with any General Assembly action. Due to this uncertainty, it will be important for all of us to be nimble and prepared. We have been in close contact with the Alexandria Registrar Office and working to prepare for any election scenario ahead. To quickly recap, at the state level, Virginia will have elections in 2021 for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general, as well as the Virginia House of Delegates. The Democratic primary for these state offices is expected to be on Tuesday, June 8th. Here in the city, there will be elections for mayor, city council, and school board, as well as two constitutional offices, Commonwealth's attorney and sheriff. And with the exception of school board, which is a nonpartisan election, the other Democratic primaries are also expected on Tuesday, June 8th. Last Thursday, the ADC's executive committee voted to continue primaries as the method of nomination for all of our local offices. As I mentioned, they are mayor, city council, Commonwealth's attorney, and sheriff. Alexandria has a long history of holding primaries as opposed to other methods like conventions or caucuses because it allows for greater voter participation, such that voters will be able to cast their ballots at their normal polling locations and can use their early or absentee voting options, which is especially important due to the COVID pandemic. Back in December, the DPVA also voted to amend its party plan, directing all methods of nomination for the Virginia General Assembly to also be primaries. All local and House of Delegate candidates seeking the Democratic nomination in 2021 must file with the Alexandria Democratic Committee, well, actually with me, by presenting completed paperwork during the campaign filing period between noon on Monday, March 8th and 5 p.m. on Thursday, March 25th. These documents include a declaration of candidacy, petitions verified by the City of Alexandria's Office of Voter Registration and Elections, and present a receipt of filing fee. Here in Virginia, the ballot order of candidates is determined by the order in which candidates file. So to facilitate an orderly and fair process, the ADC has set a time on Monday, March 8th, which is the first day of candidate filing, for candidates that wish to participate in a drawing to be at the top of the ballot order. And then any candidates that file their paperwork after this first opportunity on March 8th will be listed in the order that they file until 5 p.m. on March 25th, which is the deadline. A special note for the candidates listening here tonight: your completed petitions must be submitted to the Alexandria Registrar's Office to verify your signatures by noon on Monday, March 2nd. That's Monday, March 2nd. If you want to file at the first opportunity on March 8th, and there are no exceptions to that. On March 8th, candidates will be asked to arrive at staggered times, noon for mayor and city council, and then 2 p.m. for Commonwealth's attorney and sheriff, and finally 3 p.m. for the House of Delegates. Then finally, I wanted to share a few important resources. You can find complete candidate filing instructions on the ADC's website, alexdems.org. You can find specific candidate bulletins and instructions on the Virginia Board of Election website, or you can contact the City of Alexandria's Office of Voter Registration Elections with any other questions you may have. We will strive to keep you posted with the latest information and timeline from the State Board of Election as we receive it and during subsequent live stream programs. Tonight, we have the great pleasure to allow you to hear directly from Democratic candidates that are running for statewide offices here in Virginia. Our first speaker tonight is Norfolk Councilwoman Andrea McClelland, who is seeking the Democratic nomination for Lieutenant Governor. I have known Andrea for quite a while since we participated in the UVA Sorensen program back in 2013. Andrea has a long history in Virginia politics, starting off as a precinct captain in the 2008 Obama-Biden election and eventually became the finance chair of the Democratic Party of Virginia. In 2016, Andrea was elected to the Norfolk City Council, defeating a 16-year incumbent. Andrea comes with a strong business background, including attending the Wharton School, and served as a former chair of the Virginia Small Business Advisory Board. Welcome, Andrea. Thank you for joining the ADC tonight.
Thank you, Clarence. I'm so happy to be with you. And hello, Alexandria. Wish I were there in person. I actually used to work on Queen Street, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. And I'm married to a guy who grew up in Alexandria and graduated from Groveton High School. So I've got Alexandria in my heart for sure. I want to use this time to tell you a little bit more about my background and why I'm running. So I'm not a native Virginian. My family moved here when I was about 7 years old to Virginia Beach. Unfortunately, a few years later, my dad left, and my mom, who one of 8 kids, had never gone to college and never worked outside of the home prior to that time, fortunately was able to attend our community college. She took 2 classes and became a technical illustrator, and she was able to make ends meet for my brother and me, in addition to working at the local department store in the evenings and on the weekends. So for me, community college, career education is really key to who I am, and it's one of the things that I really want to support in my role statewide as Lieutenant Governor. School became my refuge because there really wasn't anybody at home, and so I threw my heart and soul into it. I was a thespian, a member of the Latin Club, a National Honor Society, and student council president. That's really where I got my start in politics, and graduated in a class of 850 kids, an incredibly diverse group of individuals, which gave me an opportunity to learn about a lot of different communities, a lot of different backgrounds, and really provides a foundation to who I am today. Fortunately, graduated, elected most likely to succeed. I'm trying to live up to that still to this day. I went on to the University of Virginia, and fortunately through Pell Grants and work study programs, being an RA for 2 years and being able to pay for my room and board, I graduated with a degree in Asian Studies and Economics, and then went on to a world of industrial sales and marketing. So if you can picture me with a hard hat and pink safety glasses and some steel-toed shoes, tromping around on shop floors from Erie, Pennsylvania to Long Island, New York, that is the glamour lifestyle that I led right out of UVA, selling plastics of all things. I'm now the anti-plastic person and the big recycler, but it was a great way to start to understand what it was to develop relationships with my customers, to understand their problems and try to provide solutions. And that's what I do today as an elected official, and what I will continue to do statewide as Lieutenant Governor. As Clarence mentioned, I had the opportunity to go to Wharton, and from there I ran 2 small startup companies. And this gets me to the point of why I was in Alexandria about 20 years ago. In 1999, I had the opportunity to start up what we called back then as a .com, a company called Civic Zone, and we were focused on local public sector communication tools, whether it was cities or towns, churches, local organizations, et cetera. And fortunately, with $1 million in angel funding, we were off to a great start in 1999. There were 22 employees at our offices on Queen Street, and we were out excited to rule the world and become the next big thing in the technology arena. Unfortunately, in 2000, the bubble burst, and those 22 employees I had to lay off. And then I had to declare corporate bankruptcy, and I had to come back to Virginia Beach and Norfolk with my tail tucked between my legs. It was an incredibly humbling experience, but I learned a lot. And now, as somebody who mentors other entrepreneurs, I try and teach people about those pitfalls and make sure that they avoid them as well. As Clarence mentioned, I chaired the Small Business Advisory Board subsequent to that under Governor Warner, and I still stay very active in the local business community because I think small business is really the foundation of our economy. And it's not just how do we support business, but also how do we support our workers. And I think that needs to be paired, and that's definitely something that I'll be working on as Lieutenant Governor. Over the last 20 years, I've now had 3 kids who are now 16, 19, and 22. So definitely played mom in that role in that time frame, and then served on lots of boards and commissions supporting organizations helping victims of domestic violence, homeless families, people who've recently been incarcerated, reentering the workforce, and others. And then in 2016, I ran against a 16-year incumbent for the city council seat that I now hold, representing 125,000 Virginians. I'm very proud of that opportunity, and I have focused on a variety of things from increasing access to broadband, focusing on flooding and mitigating our carbon footprint, trying to focus on offshore wind opportunities and workforce development. Civic engagement's been a big piece of the puzzle for me as well. And I'm just excited to be here with you tonight. I've decided to run for Lieutenant Governor because I think my 3 decades of experience in the private sector, the nonprofit arena, and the public sector make me uniquely prepared to take on this role at this time as we in Virginia are trying to recover from this COVID economy. I'm the only candidate who's received congressional endorsement from Congresswoman Elaine Luria and former Congressman Glenn Nye. I've a lot of other folks who are supporting me and endorsing me. I'm happy to talk with you more about that. But thank you, Clarence, for the opportunity to be here and to answer any questions that you may have.
I guess I'll start with a few questions, and anybody watching can enter a question through our Facebook Live feature, and hopefully we'll get the question answered as well. Well, first question, Andrea, what do you see as being the key issues of the Lieutenant Governor's race?
Well, first of all, let's talk about what the Lieutenant Governor does. And it's a little intimidating to have this discussion, recognizing that Congressman Don Beyer is going to be following me, who was an expert Lieutenant Governor. And he and I have talked about this as well. So, obviously the Lieutenant Governor presides over the Senate. Lieutenant Governor breaks the ties. The Lieutenant Governor is the wingman to the governor, whomever he or she is. Outside of that, it's a statewide platform to convene the best and the brightest to tackle some of the key issues facing Virginia. So what I'd like to focus on are the things that I bring to the table, the knowledge and the experience that I've already, not only tell you what I'm going to do, but what I've done. So mentioning the issue of broadband, I think broadband is really the lifeline to the future for Virginia. And we have to focus more efforts there, looking at federal resources, academia, nonprofit, the private sector. How can we make Virginia the most connected state in the United States? That would be something that I'd really like to focus on as well. I mentioned small business and workforce development. Of course, the environment. We've got to better address tackling climate change, not only climate change mitigation, but also adaptation measures. So flooding issues. I mean, I know this is an issue in Norfolk. We have sunny day flooding all the time, but in areas like Alexandria and Roanoke and Stanton and Danville, flooding has become an issue statewide. And it's something that I have experience with both as a planning commissioner, as a city council member, and at the federal and the state level. I'd love to focus on that as well. Obviously, education, near and dear to my heart, healthcare issues, making it more affordable, and tackling criminal justice reform.
All very important issues. I'm still waiting to hear of the Facebook questions, but for now, I actually have another one. So, I mean, COVID, has really made it challenging to campaign. Like, what's it been like for you so far trying to, run a statewide race?
Well, good news or bad news? Silver lining is that I was able to be with the King George Democrats 5 minutes before I was with Alexandria Democrats. So I'm taking advantage of the fact that we are in a virtual environment to reach a lot more people a lot more quickly. But at the end of the day, I'm a people person, and I'd rather be in person talking with you, seeing your expressions, understanding what your issues are. And so I certainly miss out on that for sure. Being in such a crowded field, I mean, listen, we've got 8 amazing candidates running in the Democratic primary for lieutenant governor, and I'm honored to be sharing the stage with all of these folks. But speaking of COVID, one of the things that differentiates me is I'm the only local government elected official who is running. And honestly, right now, one of the challenges that we're facing with COVID is vaccine distribution. And thank goodness Craig Pfeiffer, Alexandria's own, has been loaned to the governor to take on and act as the local government liaison. That is a piece of the puzzle that has really been missing in that distribution effort. And Craig has taken it on, and he and I have had several good conversations. I had a meeting with the governor and a few other folks representing our region just last week. I also serve as the chair of the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, representing the 17 municipalities of our Hampton Roads region, 1.7 million people, and having that understanding of how things work at the local level, translating that to the state level and back and forth is really important. And I think that's one of the key assets that I'm going to bring to the role of lieutenant governor.
Great. I am going to try to ask a question that came in packaged in a slightly different way. There are many different offices that you could run for. Here in Virginia, you've had this local experience. So why did you decide for lieutenant governor versus, there's many General Assembly seats open too? I mean, some down in your part of the state. What kind of led you to this particular decision?
So Clarence, in my role currently, I represent 125,000 Virginians. And it is a part-time role, but I'll tell you, it's a every day of the week role. When I go to the grocery store, or when we went to church, or in the kids' parking lots at school, I was facing constituents all the time. A delegate represents 80,000 people, and it's a very important role, and it's a legislative one, and I respect it, and I support our delegates and our state senators. But I think the experience that I have both as a city council member, as the chair of this planning district commission that represents 1.7 million people, as vice chair of our transit authority, as the vice chair of our regional broadband authority, serving on the joint commission on flooding, serving on several national boards. I think I've got the experience. I'm ready to step up into this role. And I think honestly, as Virginia comes out of this COVID economy, they need experienced leaders who can get the job done on day one. And I think I'm that person.
Great. Thanks, Andrea. We have time for only one quick question. Marta Chan's asked, what are the top 3 issues you want to champion as lieutenant governor?
Number 1, broadband. Absolutely, all day long. I think it is the biggest issue it faces our Commonwealth, in the sense that it touches on education, it touches on healthcare, it touches on agriculture, it touches on business, touches on mental health. It is the thing that's going to affect our economy moving forward, and both of the unserved communities in rural Virginia, as well as the underserved communities in Alexandria and Norfolk and Richmond, where people have access to broadband in the sense that it's in the ground, but it's not affordable. So that's number 1. Number 2, the environment. Continuing to focus on the Virginia Clean Economy Act and build on that, as well as flood mitigation. And the third is focusing on growing the economy through supporting small businesses and workforce development.
Well, Andrea, thanks so much for joining the ADC tonight for our live stream program. It was great to hear a little bit more about why you're running, and unfortunately we don't have more time, but wish you the best in your campaign this year.
Thanks, Clarence.
So our next speaker this evening is Congressman Don Beyer. I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I know at the beginning I said that we were going to hear from several statewide candidates, but we are very pleased to have our congressman here. You may know that Don was elected to his 4th term in the U.S. House of Representatives back in November and has served as the finance chair for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, where he worked to raise funds to support Democratic incumbents running in tough races, as well as many challengers. Congressman Beyer currently serves as a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, as vice chair of the Joint Economic Committee, and as a member of the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. And as always, if you have any questions for Congressman Beyer or any of our special guests, please use the Facebook Live chat. So Congressman Beyer, welcome. How are things going so far in the 117th Congress?
Oh, they're very peaceful. And so, first of all, thank you. It's really fun for me to hear Andrea. And Clarence, I hope you let me stay on to listen to Xavier after this brief thing. It's been very peaceful. By the way, good evening, Alexandria Democrats. Welcome to Rectangular February. All is quiet in my life. I hope it is in yours too. The Capitol hasn't been attacked in almost 4 weeks. And I might get to vote to expel Marjorie Taylor Greene from the House tomorrow night, depending on her conversation with Kevin McCarthy. I'm sponsoring ethics complaints against the 3 congressmen alleged to have conspired with the insurrectionists, traitors, to seize the government, lynch Mike Pence, and assassinate Nancy Pelosi. And I think I'm going to start packing a plastic gun to work every day, just like Lauren Boebert. Really, just a normal week. But more seriously, I just want to tell you 3 things. First, we will have a Biden COVID relief package. I know that 10 Republican senators met with him tonight at the White House. I don't know what happened yet, but I do know that our new president's not going to accept 25% of what he wants, of the dollars needed to get the virus under control, to reopen our schools, to save our local governments, and to get our economy moving again. You know, we accepted too small a deal in 2009 and paid for it in the 10 years after that. We're not going to do that again. So we're going to debate the reconciliation budget on Wednesday afternoon, and then we're going to pass it, and we'll have the necessary tools in place in case we cannot get a bipartisan package that gets our economy moving again and that meets the really extraordinary needs of the American public. Second, we will have a badly overdue and necessary infrastructure bill by summer, at least $1.5 trillion. I think it'll probably be north of $2 trillion. High-speed broadband everywhere, picking up on what Andrea had said, money for Metro, the new Long Bridge, state-of-the-art electric grid, and so much more. We've got to begin building an infrastructure for the 21st century, and the Biden-Harris team is the ones to do it. And third, I'm now the chair of the Joint Economic Committee for the next 2 years, and we're going to focus on income and wealth inequality. First big hearing actually is going to be on exactly defining the Trump economy that Joe Biden inherited. Because already the Tucker Carlsons are going to blame everything wrong on Joe Biden. But then the next big thing is focusing on income and wealth inequality based on race. How 400 years of slavery and Jim Crow and massive resistance and housing discrimination and structural racism have left Black families with 1/8 the net worth of white families. And then the next month, we're going to shift slightly to the economic inequality of women and, of course, America's children. The reason we have 1/4 of America's children living in poverty is because women are so unfairly treated economically. And by April, I'll chair the first congressional hearings on carbon pricing, how we use the markets to make carbon so expensive, we all want to shift to low carbon lifestyles and more. I'm leading a task force on fusion energy, which, as Clarence knows, is the holy grail for climate change. You know, no explosions, no nuclear waste, just good, clean energy, which has been 30 to 40 years away most of my lifetime. But now the physicists at MIT tell me it's 5 years away. We're going to pass the Wildlife Headquarters Conservation Act again, but this time we're going to go through this. And it's time for the next deep dive on suicide prevention. I have a really bill I'm very excited about. It's called the taxpayer cost of police misconduct. So it's full transparency on the billions of dollars that state and local governments spend to settle police misconduct and brutality cases. And then we'll see what change citizens are really willing to put up with. And there's politics this year too. I've told Speaker Fillercorn and Majority Leader Charnel Herring and Caucus Chair Rip Sullivan, just tell us what you need to hold the Virginia House and we will be there. Because we have to build on that House majority at all costs. And sweep those 3 statewide offices. I was thinking about running for lieutenant governor again, and then I realized that there are 8 excellent people already in the race. And I figured I don't want to finish 9th. But a 3rd straight sweep is not going to be easy. That's pretty difficult. So we're going to have to choose our nominees wisely. And thanks for giving Andrea and Xavier the chance to speak tonight, to get to know all of them really well. And in 2022, we have to preserve a very narrow Democratic majority in the U.S. House. It's like 222 to 212 right now with 1 seat out. There's likely to be about, this is the smallest House Democratic majority since 1896. And there are likely to be about 20 seats in play. In Virginia, probably Spanberger and Luria. But we can't afford to lose a single one. So with the help of your leadership, and we talked to Clarence at great length, we have assembled the elements of a world-class precinct leadership plan. To take to the precincts, every precinct in those 20 challenge districts, the kind of things that you do to run and win elections here in Alexandria. Northern Virginia is extraordinarily politically savvy rich. Great committees, great precinct captains, good leadership at the committee level, and you win darn near every election. That's what we have to try to build in the Matthews counties and Orange counties of Virginia and of the world. So please get vaccinated as soon as you can. Wear your mask, stay physically distanced. I got my vaccine because I'm old and a member of Congress. But they still say wear the mask everywhere, stay socially distanced everywhere, sleep a bunch, take melatonin, exercise, and get ready for a very exciting 2021. And thanks for letting me join you tonight. I already sent in my $25. Clarence, I yield back to you.
Well, thank you, Congressman. Thank you for your great support and your kind words about our committee as well. While we have both of our lieutenant governor candidates on, we just had a question to start, and then we'll have some more substantive policy questions for you. As a former lieutenant governor, Congressman, what would you say that Democratic voters should really think about when they're considering who to support in that primary? What are the traits that make for an effective lieutenant governor?
Everybody is lieutenant governor in their own way. My understanding of the job, first of all, the responsibilities are limited. You preside over the Senate. That's about it. And you call the governor every day and see how he's feeling. But other than that, it's a blank slate. You've got, 10 or months to do whatever you want to do. You're the second highest officer in the land. It's easy to get in the local papers or on Roanoke TV. And how you use those 10 months, the old tabula rasa idea makes all the difference. There's some people that just go home and run their business, practice law. I worked harder when we weren't in session than when we were, because there were so many things in Virginia that need to be addressed, and everywhere that need to be addressed. And the governor's going to focus on 3, 5, 7 of them. So that leaves another 500 for you to focus on. And you have to pick the couple that you think are really important. For example, for 8 years, I led the commission on Virginians with disabilities. And that commission is still going on, historically led by lieutenant governors. But I led a commission for 2.5 years on child sexual assault, which is about the hardest emotional thing I've ever done. But the basic point is, if you are creative and energetic and willing to bring people together, you can get an enormous amount of stuff done. And I think that's what I want in a lieutenant governor. Someone not just who will preside and greet people in the gallery, but someone who will make Virginia a different, better place 4 years from now.
Great, thank you, Don. I think that's really helpful to hear from your direct experience. Back to kind of where you started, January 6th, a horrible day, for our country, and we were, so horrified to see those attacks at the Capitol. I mean, there was not only the undue violence that led to the fatalities of several people, including a Capitol police officer, but also desecration of, the People's House. And I think it was especially troubling that it seemed like there was really no accountability to it, at least at that moment, right? That the people just kind of walked away, and we knew that wouldn't have happened if it was a potentially different group of people that were there. So what can you say, other than kind of what you said about like the pending impeachment or getting rid of Marjorie Greene, like what are those actions that can be taken to make sure that those folks that were part of that day will be brought to justice?
Well, I think if I read the papers carefully, it looks like the FBI will indict around 500 different people, from the most serious charges up to murder down to violating the Capitol, invasion, trespassing, and the like. I think a lot of people are going to go to jail for a long time, which is a very good thing. Brian Sicknick, the police officer that died, was one of our constituents. He lived here in the 8th District of Northern Virginia. And he was, we looked him up right away on Fireside, and he was a regular correspondent. He had strong opinions, not always agreeing with me. But, he was civically engaged. And I've talked to his brother and sister-in-law at length. He's going to lie in honor in the Capitol this Wednesday, in just a day and a half, and then be buried with full honors in Arlington Cemetery, which is a good thing. But we've not heard the end of it. I had a very safe day. I was locked up in my office in the Longworth office building when all the alarms came off and said, lock your doors, pull the shades, stay away from the windows, shelter in place. And so I was there till 2:30 in the morning when the Virginia National Guard had taken over to go over for the final vote. But you even that day, you didn't realize how horrific it was till you saw the many, many, many videos later of how absolutely brutal the people were. Sicknick, Officer Sicknick, was smashed in the head with a fire extinguisher, but many others. And now the multiple suicides that we've had as an outcome of this. But it does point to this deep, deep division, not just in how the country is and the values, but also, even more importantly, the sources of news, the way too many people who believed complete lies and were fed those complete lies, not just through Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and lots of other media sources. So, in fact, it's one of the reasons I've said that. As Nancy Pelosi, to quote her from 2 days ago, she said, right now the enemy is within. You have all these members of Congress wearing bulletproof vests. And when the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and others really think that the Democratic Party is led by pedophiles and we worship Satan, why wouldn't they shoot us on the spot? It's a crazy world, and we're going to be a long time recovering from it. But I think that the highlight of January 6th was we didn't go home. Senators, House members, Democrats and Republicans, and stayed to the middle of the night to certify the election results from Arizona and Pennsylvania and make absolutely sure that Joe Biden was our president.
Yeah, I remember watching that night and being very proud that we were able to at least uphold that process for sure, and make sure that the electors were counted. I guess final question, we only have another minute or so, Congressman. What are some of the, I guess, final questions we only have another minute or so, Congressman. What are some of the, I guess, final questions we only have another minute or so, Congressman. What are some of the, I guess, final questions we only have another minute or so, Congressman. What are some of the, I guess, final questions we only have another minute or so, Congressman. What are some of the, I guess, final questions we only have another minute or so, Congressman. What are some of the, I guess, final questions we only have another minute or so, Congressman. What are some of the, I guess, final questions we only have another minute or so, Congressman. What are some of the, I guess, final questions we only have another minute or so, Congressman. What are some of the, I guess, final questions we only have another minute or so, Congressman. What are some of the, I guess, final questions we only have another minute or so, Congressman. What are some of the, I guess, final questions we only have another minute or so, Congressman. What are some of the, I guess, final questions we only there's so much that needs to happen, you know, to make sure that the COVID response is done. What can you say about what the Biden team has brought to the table that can give the public confidence that, you know, there will be, you know, mass vaccinations sometime in the near future? I know some of our ADC members have already gotten it, but hasn't really reached most of us yet.
Yeah, I feel really good about it. When I checked this morning, we were at 32 million Americans vaccinated. The report this afternoon is about 100 million Americans have either had the disease and recovered or been vaccinated, which is, you know, almost a third of the population. That Jeff Zients, who leads the COVID effort for President Biden, is a very good manager. I've been on a number of calls with him in the last 4 days. But what they inherited was like a mess. Just nothing, especially in terms of vaccine distribution. So they're putting, you know, all full stops, full speed ahead on syringes and the reagents and the distribution mechanisms. The states were given a total of $6 million in the last 6 months of the year. That's for 50 states to prepare for vaccine distribution. So we looked at Virginia, and it was pretty discouraging. I'm glad we're sending Craig to Richmond to help, because Virginia was behind the 8 ball, but they just got a report from Stacey Rayboy, who runs Governor Northam's federal office, that we're now up to 15 out of 50 in terms of the percentage of our vaccine distributed. So I know Governor Northam, as the only physician governor in the country, wants to be first, not in the bottom 10%. So I think we'll get there in the Virginia way. We just have to be patient and stay as safe as we possibly can. As I tell my kids, you know, we've made it 11 months. Don't blow it now. You know, stay safe until you get that vaccine.
Great. Well, on that note, Congressman, thank you so much for your efforts in Washington. Sounds like you've got a big year ahead. Look forward to kind of following along with all the progress that we can achieve finally with full Democratic control again. I know that can even be short-lived, so hope we can get a lot done.
Yeah, for all the policy nerds on this call, which is almost all of us, go to the website, because there are lots and lots of wonderful initiatives there that'll make you feel much better about government and the country and the new leadership we have in the White House. Great. Thanks, Clarence, very much.
Thanks for joining us. So our final guest this evening is Mr. Xavier Warren. And Mr. Warren, he is running for lieutenant governor as well. He's a small business owner who has been helping nonprofits and other organizations gain federal funding and helped create a lot of jobs. And one thing I saw that was interesting on his page is that he also used to be an NFL agent. So that's very interesting as well. Maybe the only candidate running that has done that. So welcome, Xavier. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running. Hey, Xavier, I think you might be muted on your end. Okay, I think you should be good.
Yep.
Uh-oh. Xavier, you're still muted again. I'm sorry about that. Okay, you should try now.
Okay, how about now?
Perfect. We can hear you. Yes.
Awesome. Well, Clarence, thank you for having me here. Alexandra Dams, glad to be here as well. Congressman Beyer, good to see you as well. Been, as someone, as a Black man born and raised in Virginia and running for lieutenant governor, I know you was on a historic ticket with Governor Wilder, and you always been very encouraging. Anytime I reached out, if I sent you a text, you always responded. So much respect for that, and thank you for that as well. So I'm glad to be here. And as shared, I'm Xavier Warren, and I'm running for lieutenant governor because we're in a COVID-19 crisis. We're in a racial crisis, a climate crisis, and an economic crisis. Hundreds of small businesses have closed, and many more are still dying weekly. Thousands of people have lost their jobs and are now standing on unemployment lines. 1 in 3 people took a salary pay cut. 1 in 4 people do not have enough food to eat. And, and tragically, many of these small people are children. Many of us are being evicted from our homes and our apartments, and yet we have not seen the worst of this pandemic. As shared through Congressman Byer, we have 10 months to really be able to lean in on any initiative. The reason why I'm running for lieutenant governor is to be able to lead our post-pandemic economy and get us back on our feet. What makes me unique than all the other lieutenant governor candidates is that I'm actually an entrepreneur who has the hands-on business experience to do just that. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Danville, Pennsylvania County, from a working class family. Where I'm from, I remember when textile companies shipped overseas and tobacco employers lost their jobs and 30,000 people were unemployed. The trickle-down effect from that was the education attainment rate was lower than the state and national level, and majority of people end up falling below the poverty line. I remember vividly as a child, people telling me, if you want to be someone, you have to leave from here. And just like many small towns and rural areas in Virginia, they're suffering a brain drain from their best and brightest young people leaving the area. Listen, and I was blessed enough in a historic college and university as an empty university. And as someone again shared, coming from a working class family, my father was a maintenance mechanic, my mother was a buyer analyst. We really didn't have any money, so I worked in retail in a clothing and shoe shop just to even get school books for school. And I remember on graduation day, President Barack Obama was my commencement speaker, and he challenged my classmates and me to lead the change we want to see in America, to be the next generation of leaders. My childhood dream was to be an NFL sports agent. So I furthered my education at Georgetown University, which brought me up to Northern Virginia, where I now settle and live here in Arlington. After graduating Georgetown, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And again, I didn't have any money. And I remember what my mother always taught me: do what needs to be done to put your pride aside and get a check. So I worked in as a restaurant server. Some of you all are familiar with Bulletin. This is the Alexandria area. You remember Ted's Bulletin? I was a Ted's Bulletin server. And I remember the day that Congressman John Lewis walked in and sat at my table, and I served him. And I remember when it's time to pay, I refused for him to pay his receipt, his bill, because I told him, I said, as much as you have done for me in a Black community, as a Black man in America, but most importantly for American history and what you have done for this country, I refuse. I cannot allow you to pay for your bill. It's time for my generation to step up and be the change we want to see. That's where my spirit is, and that's where I am. So I was able to achieve my childhood dream, became an NFL sports agent. But even after that, I remember all the folks that didn't have the opportunity. I remember my mother always telling me, Xavier, remember where you came from. I remember perseverance I had to go through. As someone not having someone that didn't have the best education, someone that didn't come from a family of wealth, someone that had to persevere and struggle and spent a lot of nights crying and leaning on my parents for support. So I then started another successful business, a federal grants business, where we work with members of Congress like Congressman Byer, and also state and local officials to help schools, hospitals. but also for the rural areas and small towns that are losing their main streets. I believe that by increasing our economic base, we could be able to fund important economic initiatives such as broadband internet, also supporting money for combating climate change, healthcare, vaccine distribution, and also affordable housing. It is important that our next lieutenant governor has the hands-on business experience to be able to lead our post-pandemic economy, and I'm your candidate that can accomplish exactly that. I know what we can do as a committee. I'm a proud member of the Arlington County Committee. And so I've lit drop, phone bank, even canvassed for Don Beyer to get reelected, but also for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I even came over to Alexandria at your registrar office and served as a early day poll observer. Some of you
Great.
all probably seen me sitting there making sure that every vote counted. I served as an election day greeter as well at the Crystal Plaza location because I knew how historic and important this race meant to get Democrats in the White House, to win back the Senate, and also to be able to make sure that we are the leaders to be able to help the folks in need. I'm looking forward to having everybody's support. Please visit xavierforvirginia.com. That's XAVIERLOR Virginia.com to learn more. And I look forward to answering any questions. Thank you and God bless.
Well, thank you, Xavier, for sharing such a powerful story. And I really admire, like your passion, for social justice and your story about Congressman Lewis as well, and young people kind of stepping up in this generation. We may have some other questions in our Facebook chat, but I wanted to start with this, Xavier. I think you're a relatively newcomer to Virginia politics. Why did you decide to choose to run for lieutenant governor versus some other office? I mean, there are so many offices that you could have run for this year at the local level in the General Assembly. So why lieutenant governor, and why you're the right person for that particular role?
Well, great question. I'm sure Congressman Beyer got the same questions when he ran for the first time for lieutenant governor as well. So historically, Virginia hired and elected people from the private sector. We look back from Justin Fairfax, Terry McAuliffe, Senator Warner as well, and even Congressman Don Beyer. I'm coming from the private sector side, just like them. Someone that has lived and worked in both rural and urban areas, to live paycheck to paycheck and struggle to get the basic needs, but also someone that also is a small business owner and knows the unique challenges and responsibility that sector is facing to be able to meet payroll and lead teams. Those diverse experience and expertise is what makes me a good fit to be able to support all Virginians and make sure that we're able to get our economy back on track and make this an equitable state where we could be the leader and set the standard for all the other 49 states to be able to follow. And so I'm thankful to, again, Congressman Don Beyer leading the way for individuals like myself to be able to step up and potentially be the next lieutenant governor.
Great. No, I really appreciate your response. And another question, Xavier, that we've asked, all of the candidates who have joined us, what are your top 3 issues that you want to champion while you're, if you're elected lieutenant governor?
Yeah. So first, we got to do vaccine distribution right away. So the lieutenant governor in any statewide seats are going to be in the office this time next year. We're going to be elected primary in the summertime and elected in the fall. Again, we have not seen the full extent of COVID. We're currently right now vaccinating around 50,000 people a day. There's 8.5 million people in Virginia. So we're just going to be a while before we get to every single person. So my number 1 priority is vaccination, distribution, and healthcare. Number 2, we need to support small businesses. Small businesses have hurt, they have closed. I know what it's like to really pour into your dreams, but also your savings account into something that you have a passion about. Small businesses are hurting right now. They're dying, but also most importantly, Clarence, small businesses account and employ the majority of the workforce across the country and even in the state of Virginia. So we need to be able to support small businesses and so they could be able to stay open so people could be able to keep their jobs. And the majority of the people that are employed by small businesses are people of color, and we know the huge impact that the COVID-19 has had on them, as in death rates, but also financially as well. Number 3, education. Right now, we're facing, people can see the inequities in our education and the huge burden, not only from our K through 12 through broadband internet, but again, one of the things, a lot of people talk about broadband internet. I've actually secured money to perform broadband internet. I've got in over the last 6 months over $2 million to support with broadband internet access and hotspots as well. So I can actually get it done and have a documented track record of doing that. But we need to support our K through 12 schools and our community college and minority serving institutions. And I want to be able to us to focus on what we call a career guided pathways, where we do partnerships with our K through 12 and our 23 community colleges and include our my service institutions to be able to get people retrained or bring out our future and a future generation, high school grads and anybody in the workforce to get in jobs with livable wages. And what this looked like, this is how you explain career guided pathways. Career guided pathways is where we take the high sector and where we have job needs and we lay it out where seniors are coming out of high school. We can say to them, these are the 5 different areas that you could choose if you want to get a job with a livable wage. This one area only requires a certificate. The other area probably only required a community college, a 2-year degree. Another required probably a 4-year degree, but at least they have a better understanding of what they're getting into and what they're signing up for. At the end of them completing the courses, there's a job waiting for them that they go through the course and have the job placement and can start making a livable wage right away. There's 2 major factors and benefits of this. One, you're able to meet jobs and get the skilled workers needed to fill the empty jobs that are needed right now, and that they could be able to get livable wages. But most importantly, the second most important is that it cuts out excess student loan debt. For someone that came from, again, a Black family, a rural area, and even if you come in an urban area with not a lot of financial opportunities, student loan debt, you're already behind the 8 ball, but student loan debt really pushes you behind and hampers you from having anything, to be able to get a house, to be able to get a car, to even get the basic needs of life. So career guided pathways really cuts out excess student loans and also be able to get the skilled workers into jobs. So focusing on our education and also most importantly, raising our minimum wage as well to $15 an hour.
No, those are all incredibly important policies and definitely need to get done. This should be a pretty easy one for you, and we're going to end on this question. This actually comes from the Facebook audience tonight. Susanna Chapman is interested, in your thoughts on bringing more entrepreneurship to the state,
Right.
and specifically, what kind of policy remedy do you see as being needed to support small business ownership specifically that you could accomplish in the General Assembly?
Yeah, access to capital. It's important. And you think about it, this is where we are economically, right? We're at a time right now where you have Amazon coming to town. You have the casinos getting built. 4 is already approved in Norfolk, Portsmouth, Bristol, and in my hometown of Danville. And a 5th one is going to be in the ballot for Richmond. The marijuana business is happening right now, and more economic development projects. So I'm going to start at the end and work my way backwards. We are looking at right now, as I'm sure you all know, who are going to be competing for the marijuana licenses. We already know what we're going to get with big tobacco. Also, I'm sure you all heard the saying, the house always wins, as in the casinos. So who's going to be advocate? Who has the experience in being in boardrooms and being able to advocate and fight for working class families? And most importantly, making sure Amazon and any company, glad to have jobs to come to Virginia, but making sure that they do their fair share and reinvest in our communities. I believe not only competing for jobs, supply chain jobs coming back over here from China, and also domestic jobs on a national scale as well, talking about wanting Teslas to be built here, want to be able to have solar panel farms and more, but also we need to reinvest in our youth. We need to foster entrepreneurship here. As you know, the Richmond area is beginning to be the hub for healthcare. I mean, Northern Virginia being able to be a hub for entrepreneurs as well in tech and other opportunities across the state. We need to be able to have it available that not only people of color, veterans, and women-owned businesses are able to have access to healthcare so they can be able to have a fair shot. A couple of things I'm looking into to be able to make it a fair playing field. One, looking at state funding. Right now, the state equals out contracts to the biggest of companies. I want to look into how we could be able to make this a more equitable process, as in having potentially a requirement that these big companies then have a subcontractor of a minority-owned business. I'm talking about women-owned, veteran-owned, and also a person of color-owned business to be able to help uplift them as well and in their communities and support their businesses. We need to be able to implement and find ways that we could be able to get banks to be able to loans to people of color. We already know what we experienced through PPP. Some of the last folks to be able to get relief were people of color and women businesses. We need to be able to open up and be able to share of ways that we could be able to get access to capital. Again, I experienced that as a small business owner myself. I struggled to even get going. And, I tried to do the SBA. And I got turned down. Now, there's several other reasons why that happened, but I truly believe that we have to be the leaders in Virginia. I always viewed, when I was a young child, that Virginia was always the state that the other 49 states followed because we were the first statewide to pass post-presidential. And whatever standards we put out there, whatever initiatives we champion, then we could be able to set the standard again to make a ripple effect across this entire state. That's what we need to do, among many things, to support our small businesses, foster entrepreneurship, but most importantly, grow homegrown businesses here. I want to have Virginia to be a place where our sons and daughters and grandchildren can either, one, get an education, a quality education, two, be able to achieve their childhood dream, just like I said I did when I became an NFL sports agent. But three, if they want to be able to start a business, they have an equal chance regardless of their zip code, regardless of their race, regardless of their skin color, and regardless of their education. And that's why I'm running for lieutenant governor.
Very powerful message, Xavier. Thank you so much for joining us today to introduce yourself and share your personal story. And best of luck to you, as you pursue, this campaign for lieutenant governor. Thanks again.
Thank you. God bless you. Have a blessed day.
So time is up. We've been on for a little bit more than an hour already. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us and supporting the ADC. And we look forward to, hopefully getting COVID past us so we can, bring everybody together again for our meetings. But in the meantime, please, join us first Monday of every month for our ADC live stream. Thanks so much and have a good night.